taken precedence for a little while, but now our live guest in studio must take precedence, and we will come back to the News Hub shortly. But first of all, Joanne Callan is with me of Destination Wellbeing. Were you affected? Good morning to you. Were you affected by the power cuts this morning?
No, not affected by the power cuts this morning, thankfully. But one of those weeks where anything that could go wrong would go wrong. I suspect there must be something. Let me add on a technological side of things. So yeah, I suspect there must be something going on up there in the universe.
There's a misalignment of planets, maybe.
Possibly Mercury retrograde or something. I think we're coming out of the phase of that.
I had the same thing, because I made the normal call that I make about this time of year to the hospital to say, look, I'm coming for my checkup again, keeping an eye on things. Thanks be to God, I'm very, very fortunate in the matter of the prostate. But, she said, Mr. Hand, you're not due until September. I said, that's great, that's only 2 months away. And she says, she said, but there's a big backlog. He's not yet through July 2013. I said, well, sure, look, and you'll send for me then. She said, we will. I said, I could be dead. And she says, I hope you're not. So I've had that sort of week too,
weeks, I think, so
And a week of angularity. What's in your programme today?
In my programme today, the very opposite possibly of angularity, we're talking about the divine feminine. So a follow on from last week's show.
I love that. Say that again for me.
Divine feminine.
I think that's beautiful. St. Bridget's in there, sitting on her throne.
And embracing the divine feminine in both men and women, because we both have a divine feminine and a divine masculine.
Didn't know about that.
Yes, with all of that comes in to all of us.
Do you know the divine feminine, that legend and folklore has it, that Bridget took herself off on a donkey, or however else she went, to Bethlehem 2,000 years ago, and was there to assist at the birth of one Jesus Christ.
There we go. Well,
you hadn't heard that one?
Who knows? I hadn't heard that one.
I'm not sure I believe it.
No, but sure, there's lots of folklore and lots of story.
Indeed.
And there can be messages in them, whether we actually fully believe everything that's said.
So what are you finding out about the divine feminine?
Well, the lady that I'm interviewing is a lady called Mayela, and Mayela is Mexican by descent.
Sounds lovely.
She has brought she's Ireland's first moon mother, and she has brought the red tent to Ireland, which is I suppose a Native American tradition that allows women to sit in circle and to be. The red tent came from when women of the Native American community would have been menstruating.
They're put outside.
Well, not so much put outside, but they had a place to go to rest. Yeah, so it was a very positive. I thought
it was the men saying, get out of here.
No, it wasn't banished. It was, and other women would have supported them and during that period of time and taken some of the duties. So, but women also would have sat and spoke, and when a neighbouring village or a neighbouring tribe were invading a village, the first place they would have wanted to destroy was the red tent.
Because they got the women.
Because the women held, would have talked at that place and then went home and influenced their men to decide what was happening.
There's shades of Hiawatha coming through here. When the Hiawatha wanted to marry, the old guy said, you go, don't be going away to get beauteous maidens from over the mountain. Take one of our own and stay with us,
Well, that's, I think, we, again, we talked about this a bit last week, but so it was a follow-on from last week's programme, and the first red tent, I'm hosting the first red tent in Newry at the end of July.
And where will it be?
So at home, so it's where women will invite other women into their home.
But will you physically have a tent in the garden?
No, we'll meet in a room. No tent, no red tent.
And this is a men-free area.
That part of it is men-free, and but as I said, there are elements that.
What sort of things do women talk about in red tents when they're on their own?
All sorts of things, and I attended one along with a sound bath on Sunday evening.
A sound bath?
Sound bath.
Sound bath?
Yes.
And that's a nice idea.
Sound bath's lovely.
I get a lovely sound bath when I hit my goblet on the railing of my balcony, and I hear bong.
Bong, yeah, and that sound resonates.
Oh, totally.
Within. So, what we talked about was the sound of the divine feminine, and then but there's lots of topics. It could be anything from. Just really, there's no.
It's certainly
it
not.
doesn't, and it doesn't have to be necessarily of a spiritual nature or.
But everything's spiritual. Isn't
everything's
it, if you
spiritual,
think about it?
but it could be a very practical conversation about maybe what's happening in the press
and
how
you'll
we
host
see
them.
it as well.
You'll host them.
So yes.
Okay.
So that's our conversation for today. But a very interesting one, and Mayala talks about the linking of how women are cyclical rather than linear.
Oh yeah.
And the linking of that, and how, again, touching on where our conversation went last week, but how we need to understand ourselves before we can educate those around us in understanding who we are.
I just wonder if I'm feminine, because I'm cyclical in that I keep making the same mistakes over and over and over.
I think that's human.
And over
I think that's
and over again.
I think we make the same mistakes until we learn the lessons,
Yeah.
and we can see them as mistakes, or we can view them
Yeah.
as lessons. But I do believe that life keeps presenting us the same situations, possibly in different pictures, or in different the same lessons in different situations. That until we learn them, and until we learn whatever we have to learn about ourselves.
Are you chilled?
Yes, I'm chilled.
You have achieved that, have you?
Well, not always. This week I was it just pushed my limits of my chillness, I think. It bubbled over a little bit.
British Telecom.
Well, yes.
Give
in
it
the
a lot of
process
hassle.
of moving, and I suppose we'd call them first world problems of getting phone lines in and internet in and things like that.
Oh my God. I exist without the internet in. I do my office stuff here. And it's all good,
But, we can get so reliant on these things, and they become such a part of our lives. But that bit I can live with, but lack of communication, literally, as to progression and what's happening. Things happen, and I can understand that.
How are you in communicating with people? We're talking sophisticated communication here, modern technological communication. How are you in saying someone that you don't know at all in the whole wide world, hello, good morning, how are you?
I'm pretty good with that.
Are you all right with that?
Yeah, and I'm also, my sister came back, I had sent her, she used to work for me years ago, and I had sent her into the shop next door to the coffee shop that I had, and she came back in and she said, I think you give me your face going in there. And I said, why? She says, that woman just started telling me all her problems. And so there'd be a bit of an ongoing joke that not only can I make conversation, but that people within minutes of talking will open up and tell me their entire life story. Yeah, I mean, it like I could be speaking to somebody for 2 minutes, and so and having worked in coffee shops for a long time, you learn the art of chatting to people about very superficial stuff quite quickly, but
that can
for me it never
transcend.
stays very superficial.
No, it moves quickly.
Tends to go quite quickly. But
I actually learned the art of giving away less, not talking so much, because I had for a long time I would have been quite garrulous and would have talked too much about things, but I don't do it anymore. I've become cantankerous.
Yeah, or do you realise that sometimes talking isn't always the answer or the solution? I think it's a mix of the two. But and I started working at 13, and I think
did you?
That I think you learn, in the innocence there, you learn to.
And what was it like being put up a chimney at 13?
I loved every minute of it. Not that it was up a chimney, but
no.
I think some of the most.
What was your first job?
I worked in Spar in Westbrook.
Wow. Yeah. Michael Callan's.
Mike Callan's now, but it was Trevor Harvey's.
Yes.
When I worked at
and
Trevor and Ella Harvey.
Knee high to a grasshopper.
Yeah, but some of the best lessons that you'll ever learn, and I think it's a shame now that young people don't have those opportunities because
young people are dreadfully cosseted. You see wonderful examples of the exceptions, but the generality is good sense has been poulticed out of their minds, and they just drift along in a kind of soffitude of life.
We can't blame them.
It comes right through
they're a product of society as such,
of course.
and certain things had to change maybe, and life changed, and even things like there being more cars on the road, so physically it's more dangerous for children
I
to
see.
be out and about.
I see talking about children. I see the National Institute for Clinical Excellence has been giving advice on co-sleeping with babies. If you're a parent, you don't take your baby into bed with you. You might think it's the right thing to do, and they make the obvious connection with drink and smoking and stuff. But there are statistics that bear out that having a baby in bed with you is not a very good thing to be at. So they're suggesting now you don't. You get a cot, the baby goes in the cot, and
I suppose that has
way you
been
don't.
probably standard enough recommendation and advice for a long time. But there are some. The NCT, the National Childbirth Trust, for example, have, and I mean they're commercially available as well, but for young babies, they have sort of a cot that sticks onto the side of the bed that fits right on.
Yes, what a good
so that
idea.
It's, particularly for breastfeeding mothers and things like that, it's an easier, and generally for babies as well, I think they're more comfortable, closer to the parents.
Breastfeeding is an amazing thing. I have my latest grandchild. She could, if she was dropped into the ocean in the Arctic, she'd probably survive because she's been breastfeeding, and she has all the bigness and fatness and reinforcing the breast.
Healthy.
She's like a seal.
Yeah.
The whale or the seal. And it's sort of like a. That's the way it goes, and they're big and they're there.
Yeah,
but it's
and chunky and healthy, and and it's
and
not
they're
a.
taking in all of the good things that they should be taking in.
Yeah, and not just the nutrients. There's bacteria and stuff that they need to take in as well that can help too.
Yeah, right.
So
what time are you on air at today?
3 p.m. today.
3 p.m. Destination Wellbeing. Joanne Callan. Try the alternative.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
Thank
God
you,
bless
Ron.
you.
Take
It's
care.
lovely to see you.
You too.
You take care.
Thank you.
That's Joanne. Some music for you now.